Once, when the Buddha was preaching in Jeddah Grove, a woman wandered into the midst of the assembly, roaming about in circles and muttering to herself. What clothes she once had were torn and shredded, so that she walked naked amongst the people gathered there. Those that had come to hear the Buddha tried to shoo her away, but the Buddha followed her and then put himself in her path and spoke to her gently. Standing before him, she was able to recover her presence of mind, and someone gave her an outer robe she could wrap around herself. Her name then became Patacara, which means cloth wearer. Patacara came from a wealthy banker's family. She had been betrothed to a man of equal caste, but she had fallen in love with one of the household servants, and they decided to run away together. Before long, she had become pregnant and pleaded with her husband to let her return to her parents' home to give birth, as was the custom. Not wanting to return to his former employers for fear of being punished, he kept putting her off, until finally she left for the journey alone. Her husband caught up with her halfway. She had gone into labor, so he built a shelter for her for the night, and once their son was born, they returned home. Later, she became pregnant again, and once again asked her husband to let her return to her parents. Again he was reluctant, until finally she set out on the journey without him, taking her first child with her. Again, her husband caught up with her halfway, just as she was going into labor. A storm was coming, so he left to find materials to build a shelter. When he didn't return, she gave birth alone and spent the night holding her 2 children close to shelter them from the storm. In the morning, she found her husband had been bitten by a poisonous snake and had died in the night. She blamed herself for his death and mourned for 2 days. Finally, she set off again to return home to her parents and younger brother. Before long, she came to a river that was swollen with flood waters. She knew that she would not have the strength to carry both children across the river at once, so she told her firstborn son to stay on the riverbank while she carried her newborn across. Once on the other side, she laid her baby on a soft bed of grass and turned back to retrieve her son. She kept looking back to check on the baby and was halfway across the river when she saw a large bird swoop down and grab the infant in its claws. Screaming out and waving her arms at the bird as it flew away with the baby, Patacara's older son thought she was calling to him, and so he stepped into the water to get to her, and was swept away by the strong current and drowned. Pulling herself out of the water, Patacara's grief was almost too much to bear. Finally, she continued on her journey. At the edge of the village, she saw smoke rising in the distance near her childhood home, and she stopped a man to ask about it. He said that during the previous storm, the house had collapsed on her parents and her brother, and now their bodies were being burned on a funeral pyre. Having finished her story, Patacara looked at the Buddha with pleading eyes and asked him to help take away her misery and despair. He replied, "Patacara, don't think you have come to someone who can help you. When you yourself leave this world, no one can help you. Even in this life, no one can help." And then he spoke to her of the Buddhist path. When he finished, she asked if she could be ordained, and from there she entered into the community of nuns. Patacara went on to become one of the most revered and influential Buddhist nuns in the early Buddhist community.